Most people never dare to truly, brutally evaluate where they are in life. Not on paper, not in their minds, and definitely not out loud. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they lack ambition, talent, or even courage in every other area. It's because facing the truth is uncomfortable sometimes. It's even terrifying. But if you don't know exactly where you stand, how can you possibly get to where you want to go? Imagine trying to drive to a new city with no map and no GPS, but worse, not even knowing what city you're starting from. The destination isn't the problem, it's the fact that you're lost and pretending you're not. We're trained in a million subtle ways to avoid hard questions about ourselves. It starts early. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't rock the boat. Don't dwell on what's missing. Don't overthink your flaws. There's even a strange pride in not caring what anyone thinks, as if self-awareness were a sign of weakness. But the truth, the most powerful people in the world, the ones who change their lives, change their communities, change their families, are those who have the guts to sit down, stare their reality in the face, and take full inventory. It's not self-pity, it's not self-criticism, it's strategic honesty. If you were to pause right now, really pause, no distractions, no noise, no phone, no Netflix, could you write down exactly where you are in life? Financially, emotionally, physically, mentally. Most people can't. Not because the information is missing, but because the act of looking is so rare, so against the grain, it feels unnatural. We drift day after day in a kind of fog. We wake up, do what we've always done, hope for something to change, and push away the nagging feeling that we're standing still. Here's the hard truth. If you don't know your starting point, every plan is just a wish. Every dream is just a foggy hope. That's why so many people give up before they even begin. It's not that they're not capable, it's that their roadmap is blank. The reality is, you have to evaluate. Not in a judgmental, shame-filled way, but with the same focus and curiosity you'd use if you were fixing a car, troubleshooting a computer, or prepping for a big game. If you want to determine your real chances of getting what you want in life, you've got to know your assets, your liabilities, your advantages, your setbacks, your patterns, and your blind spots. But here's the rub. Society tells us that it's negative or self-defeating to focus on what's wrong. So we avoid it, we bury ourselves in busyness, entertainment, and the endless scroll of things that make us forget where we actually are. We'll say, well, I'd love to get out of debt, but it'd take too long. Or I'd go back to college, but in 10 years I'll be 45. Here's a radical thought. How old will you be in 10 years if you don't go back to college? You'll be 45 anyway. Time will pass whether you do something with it or not. So much of our stress, our frustration, and our sense of being stuck comes from this single quiet fact. We haven't stopped to figure out where we are. If you can reduce your stress by evaluating your true situation, that same process is exactly what can help you build a long-term, balanced, fulfilling career or life. Stress isn't just about having too much to do. It's about feeling out of control, feeling like life is happening to you instead of you happening to life. The act of self-evaluation is the beginning of taking control back. Think about the last time you made a real significant change in your life. Did it start with a burst of energy and motivation, or did it start with a sobering look at the facts? The best transformations don't come from hype or wishful thinking. They start with clarity. That moment when you realize this is where I am, this is what's holding me back, and this is what I'm actually working with. It's not about beating yourself up for what you haven't done. It's about finally getting real so you can do something that matters. That's why so many people, when faced with a big decision, will find a million reasons to procrastinate. I'll get in shape when things slow down. I'll start that business when I have more money. I'll fix my relationships when life is less stressful. The truth, life never slows down. Money is always tight. Stress is a constant. The conditions for change are never perfect, and if you keep waiting, you'll wait forever. If you really want to shift your life, if you want to build a future you're proud of, not just survive the day, then you have to take a fearless look at your present. You have to evaluate your life with the same intensity you'd use if everything depended on it, because in a very real sense, it does. But here's the thing, this isn't just a pep talk. There's a formula for getting what you want. It's not magic. It's not wishful thinking. And it's not for the faint of heart, but it works, and it starts with knowing exactly where you stand. This video is not about lofty theories or feel-good quotes you'll forget tomorrow. It's about the process, the real step-by-step method that separates dreams from goals, wishful thinking from results, and stress from real, lasting peace. We'll talk about why most people never make real progress, the difference between a goal and a daydream, and how you can create time in your day, no matter how busy you are, to make it all happen. You'll learn why taking time for quiet reflection isn't just a luxury, but a necessity. You'll see how small changes in your daily routine can free up hours you never knew you had. You'll hear the story of a world-class archer who couldn't hit a target he couldn't see, and why that matters more than anything else. If you want to hit your own goals. So if you're tired of drifting, tired of settling, and ready to get brutally honest with yourself, this is your moment. The uncomfortable truth is, the starting line for every great comeback, every breakthrough, and every real transformation. This is the foundation of a winning attitude, the willingness to look in the mirror, take stock, and build something incredible with what you find. Take a deep breath, get ready to step outside the fog and into the light. Because today you're going to discover how knowing exactly where you are is the only way to ever get where you want to go. Why do most people avoid taking a brutally honest inventory of their lives? It's simple. There's a dangerous comfort in not knowing. As strange as it sounds, uncertainty, when it's left unchallenged, becomes its own kind of shelter. You don't have to face disappointment if you never check the score. You can live in the land of maybe someday instead of staring reality in the face. For many, the fog of not knowing is more comfortable than the sharp clarity of truth. But what's comfortable is rarely what's good. We all know what it feels like to push uncomfortable truths to the background. Maybe you've ignored a growing stack of bills, avoided a hard conversation, or skipped the annual physical you promised yourself you'd schedule. There's always a reason. Now's not the right time. I'll deal with it when I'm less stressed. But here's the quiet danger. Every time we put off self-evaluation, we're trading short-term comfort for long-term pain. The problems don't disappear. They grow in the shadows. Why is it so hard to face ourselves? For one, we fear what we might find. Nobody wants to confirm their worst suspicions that they're further behind than they thought, that the habits they swore were harmless are actually holding them back, or that the dream they keep talking about has been collecting dust for years. There's embarrassment, guilt, and sometimes even shame woven into the act of self-reflection. But the biggest fear of all is this: what if I find out I can't actually change? This fear is a lie. Change is always possible. The truth isn't your enemy, it's your starting line. But before we get there, let's talk about the everyday excuses that keep us from ever starting. Excuses, the art of justifying stagnation. Excuses are everywhere, and they're clever. They sound reasonable, logical, even responsible. I can't afford to make a change right now. I'd start, but I'm too old. What if it takes too long and I end up wasting my time? The mind loves to generate reasons to stay put. It's a survival mechanism, hardwired to keep us safe from risk, rejection, or the unknown. But there's a difference between real barriers and the stories we tell ourselves. Think about it. How many times have you put something off because it seemed overwhelming, only to realize later that starting would have been less painful than you imagined? We're experts at overestimating the pain of change and underestimating the cost of staying the same. For example, Zig Ziglar famously joked about people who say, "If I go back to college in 10 years, I'll be 45. Well, how old will you be in 10 years if you don't go back? You'll be 45 anyway. The difference is whether you're 45 with a degree or 45 with the same regrets. This is the quiet danger of comfort. Life has a way of sneaking by while we're busy making plans to get started someday. Days become weeks, weeks become years, and before you know it, the opportunity has passed. Comfort tricks us into thinking we're safe when in reality we're simply standing still. The real cost of not knowing, there's a subtle but powerful cost to avoiding self-evaluation, stagnation. When you refuse to measure your progress, you can't improve. When you don't count the cost, you overspend your energy, your money, your time, your potential. You wake up one day and wonder how you drifted so far from where you wanted to be. The greatest danger isn't failure, it's mediocrity. It's a life half-lived, potential untapped, possibilities unexplored. There's also a deeper psychological toll. When you avoid facing your true situation, stress increases. Even if you pretend you're not worried, your subconscious knows the truth. The bills you're not opening, the projects you're not starting, the conversations you're not having, they become invisible weights you carry every day. The more you avoid, the heavier life feels. Stress isn't just the result of too much work. It's the byproduct of unresolved tension, of knowing deep down that something is off, but refusing to look at it head on. The stories we tell ourselves. Let's get real. Every person has a story about why their life is the way it is. These stories shape our actions, our habits, our beliefs about what's possible. Some people tell themselves, I never get any breaks. Others say, I'm just not cut out for success, or I'd do better if only my circumstances were different. The problem with these stories isn't that they're always false. Sometimes they're based on real struggles, but they become self-fulfilling prophecies. When you tell yourself, I can't change, you stop looking for ways to improve. When you believe it's too late for me, you miss the hundreds of small opportunities to start fresh, to learn, to pivot. The dangerous comfort of not knowing keeps you safe from disappointment, but it also keeps you small. Here's the uncomfortable truth: nothing changes until you change your story. That starts with knowing the facts. It starts with honest, unfiltered self-evaluation. The turning point. Embracing discomfort. So how do you break free from the trap of dangerous comfort? It starts with a decision to face the facts, no matter how uncomfortable. It means sitting down, maybe with a pen and paper, maybe just in a quiet moment, and asking yourself the questions most people run from. Where am I, really? What do I actually want? What am I avoiding and why? This act of self-inquiry is powerful. It's not about beating yourself up or cataloging your failures. It's about seeing the landscape as it truly is, so you can finally plot a course forward. The discomfort is temporary. The clarity it brings is priceless. And here's the hidden gift. Once you start, you realize it's not as scary as you thought. The things you feared, regret, embarrassment, pain, lose their power the moment you name them. You become less reactive, more responsive, and suddenly the path ahead doesn't look so overwhelming. You find energy where you thought you had none. You see options where you thought there were none. Comfort is the enemy of progress. The most dangerous thing about comfort is that it asks nothing of you. It tells you, stay here, you're fine, even as your dreams fade into the background. Progress, on the other hand, demands honesty. It asks you to leave the safety of maybe someday and step into the challenge of what's next. So ask yourself, what are you pretending not to know? What truths have you been avoiding? Are you hiding in the fog of comfort, or are you ready to step into the clarity that real growth requires? Because once you see where you are, you can finally decide where you're going. And that's when the journey truly begins. But seeing the truth is only the first step. Next, we'll uncover the real formula for getting what you want. Not just someday, but starting right now. Now that you've stepped out of the fog and into the discomfort of truth, the next challenge is figuring out what to actually do with what you've discovered. For a lot of people, this is where overwhelm kicks in. You might recognize where you're stuck, but the leap from where I am to where I want to be can feel like an impossible chasm. That's why so many give up, settling for half-hearted attempts or waiting for the stars to align. But what if there's a formula, a repeatable process for getting what you want out of life, no matter how stuck you feel right now? Let's clear up a myth right away. Success isn't the result of luck, perfect timing, or being born with all the advantages. Yes, some people start further ahead, but no one gets to the top by accident. The real formula is less glamorous, but it works every time you use it. It's about intention, not inspiration. It's about consistency, not sudden bursts of motivation. Most importantly, it's about moving from vague wishes to crystal clear goals and backing those goals with action. Step 1, identify the benefits, your why. Every meaningful change starts with one crucial question: why do I want this? It sounds simple, but most people skip this step. They focus on what they should want, what others expect, or what looks impressive on Instagram. But until you find a reason that's deeply personal, a reason that lights you up inside, your goal is just another item on a never-ending to-do list. Ask yourself, what will my life look like if I make this change? What will I gain? Will I have more freedom, better health, closer relationships, more confidence? Paint the picture in vivid detail. The clearer you are on the benefits, the stronger your motivation will be when things get tough. This why becomes your anchor, keeping you grounded when you hit inevitable obstacles. Step 2, identify the obstacles. What's standing in your way? Here's where most people tap out. As soon as the first roadblock appears, they lose steam. But obstacles aren't signs you should stop. They're signposts pointing to what you need to overcome. If you pretend they don't exist, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. List every challenge you can think of, no matter how small. Time constraints, lack of money, fear of failure, unsupportive people, limited skills, even bad habits. Write them down. Don't judge, just acknowledge. When you know your enemy, you can plan your attack. Obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're the roadmap for your growth. Step 3, spell out the skills and knowledge required. Too often, people confuse goals with wishes because they skip the nitty-gritty. Want to get promoted? Learn the skills your boss values. Want to run a marathon? Research training plans, nutrition, and injury prevention. Every goal has a skill set behind it, and the gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with learning. Get specific. What do you need to learn? Who could teach you? What resources are available? The internet is full of free information, courses, and communities. There's no shame in starting as a beginner. The only shame is refusing to start at all. Step 4, identify the people, groups, and organizations to work with. Nobody succeeds alone, not really. Even the most self-made success stories are full of mentors, allies, networks, and communities who can help you on your journey. Maybe it's a supportive friend, a professional coach, a mastermind group, or an online forum full of like-minded strivers. The right people will hold you accountable, celebrate your wins, and help you navigate setbacks. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out, introduce yourself, and share your goal. Sometimes one conversation can open doors you never knew existed. Step 5, work out a plan of action. Here's where the dream becomes real. Take all the information you've gathered, your why, your obstacles, your skills, your people, and turn it into a concrete plan. Break it down into steps so small you can't help but succeed. Want to write a book? Start with a daily word count. Want to lose weight? Start by swapping one meal a day for something healthier. Small wins compound, and before you know it, you're halfway there. Remember, action beats perfection every time. You don't need to know every step before you start. You just need to move forward, adjust as you go, and keep your eyes on the next milestone. Step 6, set a date, if possible. Deadlines create urgency. They turn someday into this day. If your goal is something with a natural endpoint, like completing a degree, running a race, or launching a project, circle a date on the calendar. This isn't about adding pressure, it's about creating momentum. But be realistic, some goals are ongoing, like building confidence or nurturing relationships. In those cases, set regular check-ins with yourself to measure progress. If you skip any of these steps, what you have isn't a goal, it's still just a dream. And dreams, while inspiring, don't get you results until you anchor them in reality. The "I'd do it but" mindset and how to break it. Let's address the single most common excuse: "I'd do it, but..." Everyone has a version of this. "I'd quit smoking, but I'd gain weight. I'd start a business, but it's too risky. I'd go back to school, but it'll take too long." Here's the truth. Every goal worth having comes with a cost. There's no path to real change that's completely comfortable. The question isn't whether it's hard. The question is it worth it? Flip the script. Instead of asking, what will this cost me? Ask, what will it cost me if I don't do this? 10 years from now, do you want to be in the exact same place wishing you'd started? Or do you want to look back and thank yourself for being brave enough to move? Goal setting is the opposite of wishful thinking. The process isn't about making your dreams smaller, it's about giving them structure. It's the difference between building a house on a foundation or just piling up sticks and hoping they stand. When you walk through each step, your why, your obstacles, your skills, your allies, your plan, your timeline, you turn the abstract into the actionable. You build momentum, you create results. And most importantly, you start living intentionally, not reactively. You move from I hope to I'm making it happen. That's the real formula. No magic, no mystery, just powerful, deliberate action, one step at a time. The power of clarity. Clarity is freedom. When you know what you want, why you want it, and exactly how to get it, you stop drifting. You start moving with purpose. Obstacles become challenges, not deal breakers. Setbacks become lessons, not failures. And every win, no matter how small, builds the confidence to keep going. Remember, most people never dare to truly ask themselves what they want, let alone build a plan to achieve it. The ones who do, they're the ones who get what they want over and over again. But even the best plans fail if you don't have the energy, focus, and space to execute them. That's where the next step comes in, the surprising power of quiet and reflection, and why making space in your life for stillness may be the missing ingredient you never knew you needed. Here's a truth that quietly divides those who build the life they want from those who only dream about it. A dream without structure stays a dream. You can talk about your ambitions, pin inspiring quotes to your wall, and visualize your perfect future until you're blue in the face. But unless you turn that dream into a goal, one with weight, direction, and accountability, it'll always float just out of reach, like a cloud you can see but never touch. You've already learned the formula. Identify your benefits, your obstacles, your skills, your allies, your plan, and your timeline. But now comes the most critical move, execution. This is where the rubber meets the road. Where most people get stuck is believing that simply wanting it badly enough will make their dream come true. Wanting is just the spark. Goal setting is how you build the fire. From imagination to implementation, Volter how? Let's get specific. Let's say you want to improve your health. You can visualize yourself with more energy fitting into old clothes, maybe running a 5K or hiking that mountain you keep seeing on Instagram. That's your dream, and it's a great start. But unless you anchor it with real-world actions, tracking your meals, scheduling workouts, joining a supportive group, it won't happen. Every goal needs a set of behaviors and benchmarks. Otherwise, the days will slip by, each one just like yesterday, until you blink and another year has passed. Why does this step matter so much? Because the brain loves ambiguity. It loves the comfort of someday, the fantasy of instant transformation. But when you set real goals, concrete, measurable, time-bound, you create accountability. You create milestones to celebrate. You give your mind something to chase, not just to wish for. Building the foundation, goals need ground to stand on. Think of your dream like a house. You wouldn't start building the roof first or picking out furniture before pouring the foundation. Yet that's what so many people do with their ambitions. They jump to the rewards before laying the groundwork. Turning dreams into goals is about pouring the foundation brick by brick. The benefits, massive. For one, clarity eliminates overwhelm. When you break a big dream into smaller goals, you stop feeling lost. You stop getting crushed under the weight of too much. Instead, you focus on the next step. That's how marathoners finish the race, 1 mile, 1 block, 1 step at a time. Second, real goals demand action. They ask you to show up. Even on days you're tired or discouraged. They don't care about your excuses, your mood, or your fears. They only ask, what will you do today? This is where discipline is born, not in a flash of inspiration, but in the quiet daily choice to keep moving forward. If it's missing, it's not a goal. This is where Zig Ziglar's point lands with full force. If you skip even one step of the formula, what you have isn't a goal, it's just a wish. Did you write down your benefits? Did you map out the obstacles? Did you research what you need to learn? Did you reach out to the right people? Did you break your plan into actionable steps? And if possible, set a date? If you answered no to any of these, pause. It's not a sign of failure. It's a sign you need to go back and build a stronger foundation. There's no shame in this. In fact, it's empowering. Because as soon as you fill in those missing pieces, you give your dream the best possible chance to grow. Dreams are fragile. Goals are resilient. Here's another hard truth. Life will throw curveballs. Your energy will fade, distractions will creep in, and sometimes the progress will feel painfully slow. This is where most dreams get lost, drained by the slow leak of daily life. But goals, real well-structured goals, are built to withstand the storm. Because when things get tough, you don't ask, should I give up? You ask, what's my next step? Goals force you to problem solve, to adapt, to learn from setbacks instead of being defeated by them. Each small win fuels the next. Each stumble is just feedback, not a reason to quit. From dreamers to doers, the mindset shift. One of the biggest transformations you can make is shifting from a dreamer's mindset to a doer's mindset. Dreamers live in the future, always about to start. Doers live in the present, taking real action, even if it's imperfect, even if it's just one small step. They're not waiting for permission. They're not waiting for perfect conditions. They're building brick by brick right now. But this shift takes practice. The human mind is wired for comfort. It's easier to daydream than to plan, to imagine than to execute. The challenge is to break that pattern. How? By making the next step so easy you can't say no. Write down your goal. Tell one person, do 5 minutes of research, schedule a phone call, sign up for that class. Action, no matter how small, is the bridge from dream to goal. Turning goals into habits. It's not enough to set a goal once and forget about it. True progress comes from consistency. This is where habits come in. Goals give you direction. Habits give you momentum. Make your goals part of your daily or weekly routine. Track your progress. Reward yourself for milestones. Adjust when you get off track, but never lose sight of your why. Small, repeated actions create huge results over time. It's not the dramatic overhaul that changes lives. It's the daily discipline, the relentless return to what matters most. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Don't wait until everything is lined up before you move. Celebrate every small win. Did you make one better choice today? Good. Did you learn something new, even if you stumbled? That's growth. Momentum builds not from flawless execution, but from the simple act of refusing to quit. When dreams turn to goals, life changes. People often say, one day but one day is a myth. One day doesn't exist. There's only today, only the small steps you can take now. When you turn dreams into goals, you shift the balance of power. You stop waiting for life to happen, and you start happening to life. And here's the payoff. When you do this, when you set a goal, build the plan, and take action, you unlock a sense of pride and satisfaction that no shortcut, no quick fix can ever match. You stop drifting, you start achieving. And that, more than anything, is what separates the people who build their best lives from those who only talk about it. But even the strongest goals need the right environment to grow. Next, we'll explore the quiet, often overlooked power of reflection, stillness, and making space for your mind to thrive. In a world that never stops moving, the concept of doing nothing sounds almost rebellious. You're bombarded with notifications, deadlines, entertainment, and the constant expectation to produce, respond, and react. But beneath this relentless momentum is a simple, ancient truth. Progress doesn't just come from hustle. Sometimes it comes from stillness. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is nothing at all. Think about it. When was the last time you were truly quiet? Not scrolling, not working, not listening to a podcast or catching up on messages, but actually sitting in silence alone with your thoughts. For most people, this is a rare event, maybe even uncomfortable. Yet this is where the deepest breakthroughs happen. This is where stress is dissolved, clarity is born, and the next chapter of your life begins to take shape. Why quiet time feels so hard and why it's essential. Let's be honest, modern life is a master of distraction. The moment you sit down to be quiet, your brain serves up a to-do list a mile long. Did you leave the stove on? Should you check your email? Maybe it's time for a snack, a walk, or a peek at your phone. This isn't a flaw in your character. It's the wiring of your mind, always searching for stimulation and novelty. But here's the paradox. The more you avoid stillness, the noisier your life becomes. Stress doesn't come from what you haven't done. It comes from never giving your mind the space to process, to plan, to breathe. That's why so many people feel stuck, exhausted, or anxious. They're never off, never unplugged. The mind is like a garden. It needs moments of stillness to grow anything worth harvesting. Zig Ziglar put it simply, if you want to build a winning attitude, you need to take time to be quiet. At least 4 or 5 times a week, carve out a few minutes just for you. Not for chores, not for work, not even for exercise. This is about letting your mind drift, about walking aimlessly, about sitting somewhere comfortable and simply existing. How quiet time supercharges your life. Why does this work? Quiet time isn't just a break from the world, it's a reset for your brain. When you give yourself permission to do nothing, you create the mental space for new ideas, deeper understanding, and genuine inspiration. Here's what happens when you make space for reflection. Stress melts away. Instead of being a pressure cooker of unresolved thoughts, your mind decompresses. Problems that seemed insurmountable start to look smaller. Clarity emerges. Solutions appear, not by force, but by giving your subconscious time to connect the dots. Creativity blooms. The best ideas rarely come when you're grinding. They show up when you least expect them, in the shower, on a walk, during a lazy afternoon. Energy returns. When you stop burning energy on 1,000 competing distractions, you recharge. You're able to tackle your day with more focus, more drive, and more excitement. Creating space. It's simpler than you think. You don't need to book a meditation retreat or buy expensive gadgets to find quiet. In fact, it's the simplest changes that work best. Here are a few practical ideas. Go for a slow walk, not an exercise walk, not a brisk power walk for your fitness tracker, but a slow, aimless stroll. Let your mind wander. Notice the world around you. Don't try to solve any problems. Just be. Wake up early. If life is noisy, find your silence before the world wakes up. Even 10 minutes with a cup of coffee and a blank page can make a difference. Find a quiet spot at home. Maybe it's a corner, a favorite chair, or a sunny spot on the floor. Make it your own. Protect it. Limit screen time. Ziglar famously pointed out that over 70% of television time is spent watching things you don't even care about. Turn it off. Use that time for quiet, for reading, for thinking. Schedule it. Treat quiet time like any other non-negotiable appointment. Don't apologize for it. Don't skip it.
The resistance is real. Push through anyway.
Here's what you'll notice as soon as you try. Resistance. Your mind will rebel. Suddenly everything feels urgent. The dishes, the laundry, that random email you forgot to send. This is the brain's way of escaping discomfort. But if you sit through it just for a few minutes, you'll break through to a place of peace. You'll realize how much power there is in being still, in letting thoughts settle like snow in a shaken globe. Over time, this practice changes you. You become less reactive, more centered. You stop living at the mercy of every interruption and start building your days around what matters. You gain the power to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. And this shift isn't just about personal happiness, it's about effectiveness, resilience, quiet reflection, the secret weapon of high performers. Look at the people who achieve the most, not just in business, but in life. The artists, the athletes, the thinkers, the leaders. Nearly all of them have a ritual of solitude. They take walks, they journal, they meditate or pray, they build white space into their lives because they know this is where true strength and creativity come from. Quiet time isn't wasted time. It's preparation. It's the sharpening of the axe before chopping down the tree. When you step into your day after a period of reflection, you're not just reacting to the world, you're responding with purpose, turning down the noise, making space for what matters. There's a lesson here for everyone. The world will never stop demanding your attention. If you wait for the perfect time to find quiet, you'll wait forever. The solution isn't to escape your responsibilities, but to claim a few minutes of peace as your own, no matter how busy life gets. Because in the quiet, you rediscover your why. You remember your goals. You process your struggles. You set your intention for the day, not as a wish, but as a commitment. That's the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. From quiet to action, you may be thinking, but if I slow down, won't I fall behind? The truth is, the fastest way to move forward is often to pause and reset. The answers you're looking for are rarely found in the noise. They're found in the silence between, in the moments you give yourself permission to breathe. So if you're serious about turning your dreams into goals and your goals into reality, make quiet reflection a non-negotiable part of your routine. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. But even with the best habits and the deepest reflection, life will test you. Stress is a constant companion in the modern world, and how you handle it can make or break your progress. Next, let's tackle the reality of stress, deadlines, and why busyness is often just a mask for overwhelm, and how you can overcome it for good. Let's be honest, stress is everywhere. It's become so normal that we almost brag about it, how little we've slept, how many plates we're spinning, how exhausted we feel at the end of every day. Stress has become a badge of honor, a twisted sign that you're working hard enough. But let's call it what it really is, a warning sign, not a mark of success. Because when stress becomes your baseline, you're not moving forward, you're surviving on fumes. It's not just the endless grind of work deadlines or the long list of personal responsibilities. It's a sense that no matter how hard you push, it's never quite enough. There's always something else to do, another commitment to juggle, another standard you're supposed to meet. So you try to do it all, faster, louder, more. But here's the secret nobody tells you. More doesn't always mean better. Sometimes busyness is just a clever disguise for avoidance, a way to fill your life with noise so you don't have to face what really matters. The shocking truth about stress. Consider this, over 90% of visits to medical doctors are directly or indirectly related to stress. 90%. It's not just the big problems that send us searching for help, it's the accumulation of little things, worry, overwhelm, unresolved tension that slowly erode our health and happiness. Most people think stress is a byproduct of having too much to do, but in reality, it's often the result of never truly switching off. The mind is always running, the body always on alert. Think of your own life. How often do you stop and really rest? Not just collapse in front of a screen, but actually let your mind and body reset. For most people, true rest is a rare commodity. And when you're always on, the smallest setback feels like a crisis, the smallest delay feels like a failure. It's a vicious cycle that wears down even the most driven individuals. The deadline's dilemma. If you're ambitious, you probably live by deadlines, at work, at home, even in your personal goals. There's always a new project, a looming task, something demanding your time and focus. But here's where the myth of busyness kicks in. Being constantly busy doesn't guarantee you're moving closer to what matters. In fact, it often means the opposite. You're spinning your wheels, staying in motion, but getting nowhere. Zig Ziglar understood this better than most. He faced endless deadlines, writing books, teaching classes, leading seminars. Each one required intense preparation and focus, and yet he made it a rule never to wing it, never to assume that yesterday's preparation would be good enough for today. He spent hours reviewing, rehearsing, refining, because the arrogance of thinking you can just show up and succeed is a recipe for disaster. It's tempting to believe that if you're busy enough, you're making progress. But busy is not the same as productive. You can fill every hour of your day and still end up no closer to your real goals. In fact, busyness can become its own form of procrastination, a way to avoid the discomfort of focusing on what truly matters. Why stress feels inevitable and why it isn't. Stress isn't just about your environment or your to-do list. It's about how you respond to what's happening around you. There's a crucial difference between reacting and responding. When you react, you let life dictate your emotions. You're thrown off course by every little crisis, every new demand. When you respond, you pause, assess, and choose your next move with intention. You shift from survival mode to strategic mode. How do you make this shift? Start by recognizing that you have a choice. Stress is not just something that happens to you. It's something you can influence by how you structure your day, how you set your boundaries, and how you treat yourself when things go wrong. Set realistic expectations. You can't do everything and you don't need to. Choose your priorities. Focus on progress, not perfection. Schedule downtime. This isn't laziness. It's smart. Just like a muscle needs rest to grow, your mind needs breaks to perform at its best. Practice saying no. Every yes is a no to something else. Protect your energy. Reflect. Don't ruminate. Use quiet time to process your thoughts, not just to replay your worries. The myth of multitasking. Here's another modern myth. Multitasking is a superpower. The truth, multitasking is just a fancy word for being distracted. The more you split your attention, the less effective you become at anything. The science is clear. Switching between tasks drains your mental energy, increases mistakes, and actually slows you down. If you want to do your best work, focus on one thing at a time, give it your full attention, then move on. You'll be shocked how much faster and better you can perform when you stop trying to do everything at once. Preparation beats panic. Preparation isn't glamorous. It happens in quiet moments, when no one is watching and there's no applause. But it's the difference between success and burnout. When you prepare, you enter each day with a plan, not just a hope. You're ready for challenges, and setbacks don't derail you. They become part of your strategy. Take it from the best performers in any field. They don't just show up and hope for the best. They prepare, rehearse, and anticipate what could go wrong. They build resilience, not just results. That's the foundation for real confidence and lasting achievement. Respond, don't react. Your secret weapon. So how do you move from constant stress to sustainable success? By making a habit of responding instead of reacting. The next time you face a challenge, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, what can I control? What can I let go of? What's the next small step? When you respond instead of react, you take back your power. You stop being a victim of your calendar, your circumstances, or your fears. You become the architect of your own life. From busyness to balance, the final truth is simple but powerful. Busyness is a choice, so is balance. If you want less stress, more clarity, and greater achievement, you have to make space for what matters most. That means letting go of distractions, setting boundaries, and treating your time like the precious resource it is. Busyness will always be there, waiting to pull you back into the noise. But if you commit to working smarter, not harder, you'll discover a new kind of energy, a focused, sustainable drive that gets you results without burning you out. And speaking of focus, there's a story that perfectly illustrates the power of having a clear target. A story about archery, mastery, and the simple truth that you can't hit what you can't see. That's where we're headed next. At the heart of every high-achieving life is a subtle, powerful shift. One that separates those who constantly feel overwhelmed from those who seem to glide through even the toughest days. That shift is the difference between reacting and responding. It's not just a change in vocabulary, it's a fundamental difference in how you approach every challenge, every setback, every unexpected twist. Most people live in reaction mode. The alarm clock rings and they're already behind. They rush from one obligation to the next, handling emergencies as they come, juggling tasks, and always feeling like life is one step ahead. If something good happens, it's a welcome surprise. If something bad happens, it's a crisis, another fire to put out. This kind of living is exhausting. It drains your energy, shortens your fuse, and leaves you feeling powerless, like you're always at the mercy of outside forces. But there's another way, a more deliberate, empowered way to live. It starts with a single question. Am I reacting to life or am I responding to it? Reacting, the fast track to burnout. When you react, your decisions are automatic. Something happens and you respond instinctively, without pause, without thought, often without realizing it. Your emotions drive your actions. You snap at a coworker. You make a hasty decision. You eat that extra snack because you're stressed. You're not steering the ship. You're just trying not to capsize. This reactive mode is ancient, built into your brain as a survival mechanism. It helped your ancestors survive real threats like wild animals or dangerous storms. But in the modern world, most of what triggers our fight or flight is psychological, not physical. An angry email, a negative comment, an unexpected bill. If you're always reacting, your body stays in a constant state of alert, flooding you with stress hormones. Over time, this erodes your health, your relationships, and your sense of control. Responding, the path to power. Responding, on the other hand, is intentional. It means creating a space between what happens to you and what you choose to do next. That space, even if it's just a breath, a single heartbeat, is where your power lives. In that moment, you can assess, reflect, and decide. You're no longer a victim of circumstance. You're a leader in your own life. Picture it. You receive bad news. Instead of spiraling into anxiety, you pause. You notice your feelings. You take a breath. Then you ask, what's really happening here? What can I control? What's the best next move? Sometimes the answer is to act. Sometimes it's to wait or to seek more information. Sometimes it's simply to accept what you can't change. But whatever the choice, it's yours. That's the essence of true confidence, knowing that no matter what comes, you can handle it. The power of preparation. One of the best ways to move from reaction to response is through preparation. Zig Ziglar's story about preparing for every talk, even ones he'd given hundreds of times, isn't just about professionalism, it's about respect. It's a recognition that every situation, every audience, every day is unique. Assuming you can wing it is arrogance. Taking time to prepare is humility and wisdom. When you prepare, you give yourself the tools to respond thoughtfully, not impulsively. You reduce the number of crises in your life, not because bad things stop happening, but because you're ready for them when they do. Preparation isn't just about your work, it's about your habits, your relationships, your mindset. When you start your day with reflection, with a plan, with intention, you become the kind of person who responds to life, who meets challenges head on, who adapts when necessary, who never panics. Health, hope, and mindset. The difference between reacting and responding shows up everywhere, but it's especially visible in how we deal with health and setbacks. Ziglar used the example of a doctor's visit. If you react to a bad diagnosis, you might panic, spiral, or feel hopeless. But if you respond, you ask questions, you seek solutions, you make a plan. The outcome isn't guaranteed, but your sense of hope is transformed. That's why hope is more than optimism. It's an active belief that your actions matter. When you respond to life, even adversity can become a teacher. Every setback is a chance to grow, to learn, to adjust. The power of perspective. Here's a secret. Most things that feel like emergencies in the moment are just blips in the bigger picture. When you respond, you gain perspective. You see setbacks as temporary, not permanent. You remember your why, your goals, your progress so far. You stop letting every small obstacle knock you off course. This perspective is hard to find when you're constantly in motion, always reacting. It grows in the quiet spaces, during reflection, during preparation, during moments of intentional stillness. A story of targets and mastery. Zig Ziglar loved to illustrate these points with stories. Consider Howard Hill, the world-class archer who never missed his target. Hill was unbeatable because he had absolute clarity. He knew exactly what he was aiming for, practiced relentlessly, and responded to every new challenge with skill and focus. But what if you blindfolded Howard Hill, spun him around, and handed him a bow? Suddenly, even the best archer in the world couldn't hit his mark. Why? Because it's impossible to hit a target you can't see. The same is true in life. If you're constantly reacting, you're living blindfolded, shooting arrows in the dark, hoping to get lucky, but when you respond, you take off the blindfold, you choose your target, you line up your shot. It's not about perfection. It's about intention. Building the habit of response. So how do you build this habit? Start small. The next time something triggers you, a rude comment, a missed opportunity, a burst of bad news, pause. Take a deep breath. Notice your initial reaction, but don't act on it immediately. Give yourself permission to wait. Then choose your response. Even if it's not perfect, you're retraining your brain to live from intention, not impulse. Over time, this pause becomes natural. You become less rattled by chaos, more centered in your choices. People notice you become the calm in the storm, the one others look to when things get tough. Your challenge, response over reaction. Here's your challenge for the next week. Notice when you're reacting. Catch yourself in the act, whether it's snapping at a loved one, doom scrolling social media, or rushing through a decision. Pause, breathe, choose a response instead. It's simple but powerful. Over time, it will change the way you work, the way you relate, the way you live, because life will always be unpredictable. But you can be intentional. And now, it's time to focus on the ultimate lesson, the story of the archer, the target, and the most important question you can ask yourself. How can you hit a target you don't even have? In the world of personal development, analogies come and go, but some cut right to the core. Zig Ziglar's archery story is one of them. A tale that's simple on the surface, but reveals a profound truth about why so many people drift through life feeling lost. Let's unpack it. Imagine the scene. Howard Hill, legendary archer, steps onto the field. He's undefeated, a true master of his craft, able to split arrows at will and land every shot in the bullseye. But now someone steps up, blindfolds him, spins him around, and then hands him his bow. Suddenly the impossible becomes obvious. Even the greatest in the world can't hit a target he can't see. It's easy to laugh at the absurdity. Of course, no one could hit the bullseye without seeing it, but what's shocking is that most people live their entire lives just like that, wandering, guessing, hoping for the best, never daring to clarify what their real target is. And then when life doesn't deliver the results they want, they wonder why. Why a clear target changes everything. It's not enough to want success, happiness, or meaning. Those words are blurry, shapeless. If you asked 100 people what success means, you'd get 100 different answers. Without a clear, specific target, your efforts scatter like arrows shot into a dense fog. Maybe one will land somewhere promising, but most will fall short or miss entirely. Clarity is the most underrated superpower. When you define your target, everything changes. You stop wasting energy on distractions. You start measuring progress in ways that matter. The very act of naming your goal, making it tangible, specific, real, brings it closer than you ever thought possible. So why do so few people do it? Fear, for one. If you name your target, you risk missing it. You risk disappointment, embarrassment, even failure. But if you never name it, you guarantee you'll never hit it. The pain of aiming and missing is temporary. The pain of never aiming at all lasts a lifetime. The price of vagueness, let's get practical. Think of all the times you've said, I just want to be happier, or I need to get in shape, or someday I'll travel more. These are not targets, they're wishes. If your GPS only said go somewhere nice, you'd never leave your driveway. If an architect started building a house with no blueprint, you'd end up with a pile of bricks and no roof over your head. Vagueness keeps you stuck. You end up working hard, but not getting anywhere meaningful. You chase someone else's dream, climb someone else's ladder, and find yourself exhausted, confused, and unsatisfied. The world is full of busy people going nowhere fast. How to find your bullseye. If you're ready to stop drifting and start aiming, it's time to get specific. Your target doesn't have to be massive or impressive. It just has to be clear. What do you really want? What does success look like for you, not for your parents, your friends, or your Instagram feed? If it's health, what does that mean? Running a 5K, losing 20 pounds, sleeping better? If it's career, what exactly is the next step? A promotion, a new skill, starting a business. If it's relationships, what do you crave? Deeper connections, more time with family, healing old wounds? Write it down. Don't let it live in your head where it can change with every mood swing or passing trend. Put it on paper. Make it measurable. I want to save $10,000 by next summer. I will read 12 books this year. I will spend 2 hours every weekend with my kids. No phones, no distractions. That's how you create a target you can actually hit. Visualizing the shot. The power of mental focus. Once you know what you're aiming for, don't just leave it at that. Olympic athletes, master performers, and world-class achievers all use visualization to lock in their targets. See yourself hitting the bullseye. Imagine the process, what it feels like, what obstacles might appear, how you'll overcome them. When your mind rehearses success, your actions start to follow. This isn't magic, it's neuroscience. The brain can't always distinguish between real practice and vivid visualization. The more clearly you see your goal, the more naturally you move toward it. Course correction, the path isn't a straight line. Here's the secret. Even the best archers know. You won't hit the bullseye with every shot. Sometimes you'll miss completely. But with a target, every miss teaches you something. You adjust your aim, your stance, your timing. Without a target, all you learn is frustration. Life's like that. You'll stumble, regroup, try again. But because you have a target, every setback is information, not failure. It's feedback. It's the only way anyone ever improves. Don't settle for blindfolded living. Maybe you're thinking, but what if my target changes? That's okay. Targets evolve as you grow. What matters is that you always have something specific to aim at. When you live without a target, you become a spectator in your own life. When you choose your bullseye, you become the archer, the one in control. Remember, even Howard Hill, at his absolute best, couldn't hit what he couldn't see. No one can. But the moment the blindfold comes off and the target is in sight, everything is possible. Your bullseye awaits. So what's your target? What do you want to achieve, experience, or become this year, this month, this week? Write it down, say it out loud, share it with someone you trust, make it real, because clarity is power. When you see your target, you can finally start to line up your shot. The journey isn't always smooth, but it's always worth it. And as you embrace this truth, as you move from drifting to aiming, from fog to focus, remember that life rewards the bold, the ones willing to define what matters and go after it with everything they've got. In the end, that's what separates a life of regret from a life of purpose. Not talent, not luck, but the simple decision to take off the blindfold, pick your target, and take your best shot. If you follow this journey from the fog of not knowing through the steps of goal setting, reflection, and action, you're already ahead of most. Because the uncomfortable, undeniable truth is this: most people live their entire lives without ever honestly asking, "Where am I?" or daring to answer, "What do I really want?" We avoid self-inventory, not because we're lazy or incapable, but because it's easier to drift than to steer. It's safer to keep the blindfold on, never risking the pain of missing the mark, never risking the embarrassment of aiming high and falling short. But in that safety and that numbness lies the greatest danger of all, a life half-lived, full of maybes and somedays that never become today. If you remember nothing else from this, let it be this: you cannot hit a target you cannot see. It's as true in archery as it is in life, and it's the dividing line between those who make things happen and those who wonder what happened. The power of honest self-evaluation cannot be overstated. When you finally sit down, shut out the noise, and look in the mirror, not just at what's going well, but at what's missing, what's painful, what's stuck, you take back your agency. You stop living as a spectator and become the main character in your story. You shift from hoping for change to causing it. The real difference maker: action backed by clarity. Dreams are beautiful, but they're also fragile. Left alone, they fade in the light of daily distractions and doubts. But when you turn a dream into a goal, when you give it a name, a plan, a deadline, and a place in your daily routine, it becomes something solid. You move from someday to now, and with every step, your confidence grows. You see yourself as someone who can do hard things, someone who takes action in spite of fear, not because you're fearless. And what happens next? Life gets real. You'll face setbacks, distractions, maybe even criticism, but because you know your target, every miss is just information, not a death sentence. You tweak your aim, you stand up straighter, you get better. The path isn't straight, but it's yours. Quiet reflection, the reset button for your mind. Remember the lesson of stillness, busyness, and noise don't equal progress. When you make space for reflection, even 10 quiet minutes, 4 or 5 times a week, you give your mind the freedom to process, recharge, and realign. You catch the drift before it becomes a rut. You see the big picture instead of just the next fire to put out. In those moments of quiet, you can ask the tough questions. Am I moving closer to my target or just staying busy? Am I acting on what matters or just reacting to whatever comes next? These questions recalibrate your course, sometimes with small corrections, sometimes with bold new directions. Without reflection, you can end up climbing the wrong ladder faster and faster, only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. Respond, don't react. Reclaim your power. If there's one habit to build, it's the ability to respond rather than react. Life will never stop testing you. Stress, setbacks, surprises, they're part of the deal. But you always have the power to pause, breathe, and choose your next move. That pause is where strength is forged, and in that strength is the difference between just surviving and truly living. You are not powerless. You are not doomed to drift. Every day you get to choose how you respond to obstacles, to opportunities, to the world around you. The more you practice this, the more unshakable you become. Stop settling for blindfolded living. It's easy to go through life with the blindfold on, hoping for a lucky break. But hope is not a strategy. Waiting is not progress. The blindfold keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. The moment you decide to take it off, to define what you want, why you want it, and how you'll get it, everything shifts. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to choose your target and take your shot. And if you miss, good, you're in the arena now. You're learning, adapting, getting closer with every attempt. Your life is waiting. Aim on purpose. Let this be your call to action. Don't drift another day. Don't wait for the stars to align or for someone to hand you a map. Start with what you have, where you are. Get quiet, get honest. Write down your target, no matter how big or small. Map out the steps. Identify what stands in your way and what you'll do about it. Find your allies, your tools, your resources. Set a date if you can, and then move, even if it's just a tiny step forward. The world is full of stories. of people who started with less and became more simply because they dared to aim. Not because they were fearless, but because they were willing to see, to try, to keep adjusting their shot. The journey isn't linear, and that's the point. Don't let perfectionism or the fear of missing stop you from playing the game. The most fulfilled people aren't those who hit the bullseye every time, but those who never stop aiming. The real regret isn't in the misses, it's in never picking up the bow. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need to wait for a sign. The only thing you need is a willingness to take off the blindfold, choose a target, and start moving. Every great life begins with that choice. A final challenge. What's your target? So here's the question. Maybe the only question that really matters. What's your target? Not your parents' dream, not society's standard, not the vague someday that keeps you comfortable. Yours. Write it down, share it, make it so clear you can't help but move toward it. And when you do, remember this. The only thing more powerful than a dream is a dream with a deadline and a plan. Clarity creates momentum. Momentum creates change. Change creates a life that's truly yours. Today, take that step. Be the person who knows where they're aiming. Be the person who dares to see, to act, and to live on purpose. Because the only thing standing between you and your best life is the courage to take off the blindfold, line up your shot, and finally, bravely, let your arrow fly.